Up next on Carib Nation Health, we have a very interesting topic for you. We're going to talk about social media addiction. So please stay tuned.
Welcome to Carib Nation Health. I am Dr. Gwen Sindas and my co-host,
Dr. Kiana Nix.
We are going to talk to two prominent physicians who are in the field of psychiatry. Dr. Ganiat Jayasini Ajayi is a child and adolescent psychiatrist in Georgia. She graduated undergrad from Clark Atlanta University, and she went on to medical school at Meharry Medical College, where we both met, and we're wonderful alumni and we love our school. And she trained in psychiatry at Washington University in St. Louis, Missouri, as well as Emory University in Atlanta, Georgia, where she's still associate professor. And today, now she's the medical director and attending psychiatrist at Salveo Integrative Healthcare and Project Adam in Winder, Georgia. Thank you, Dr. Ganiat, for coming to spend time with us here in Carib Nation Health.
Dr. Sophia Francis Stewart is a friend of mine. We went to high school together at the Convent Mercy Academy in Jamaica. She completed her undergraduate degree at the City College of New York, and she went to medical school at Robert Wood Johnson Medical School, University of Medicine Dentistry in New Jersey. She completed her residency in general psychiatry at North Shore, Long Island Jewish in New York. And now she is the medical director at the Lifeline Center for Child Development and a staff psychiatrist at the Faye Daylinder Center for Autism.
Our first question to our illustrious doctors, Dr. Sophia Francis Stewart and Dr. Jayasini Ajayi, is tell us, can you define social media addiction? Dr. Jayasini, would you like to go first?
Okay, sure. Thank you. Well, when we talk about social media addiction, it's not something that is actually defined because it's now part of the there's not diagnostic criteria yet. It's anecdotal diagnosis, and it's also a diagnosis exclusion. But nonetheless, we find out about 5 to 10% of the population in the United States meet criteria for the addiction. So they have to be put on this criteria for those that have maladaptive behavior with addiction disorder,
I see.
like gambling addiction, social anxiety disorder, depression. But by its own entity, because there's no really treatment for it yet, so it is not a standalone. So it's part of the concept that it leads to other comorbidity that we can diagnose and treat. So that's not really a thing just yet.
Yeah. Well, Dr. Sophia, how are you experiencing social media addiction?
Right now, especially this past year, it's really come to the forefront of a lot of the interactions that I have with patients and their parents. And because for myself, I treat a lot of people with autism, and I also treat a significant number of people who are neurotypical. And this issue has become more and more prominent in the last year and a half due to coronavirus pandemic lockdowns and restrictions. Really, because the DSM does not recognize social media addiction at this moment in time, when discussing it in general, we kind of label it more as like an internet addiction disorder. And we can, under that label, kind of bring in all the other things that, you know, we term as social media disorder. Usually for us to look at it as an internet addiction disorder, we have to look at how it impacts the child's or the adult's daily life and functioning. You look, how much time does it take up in a given day? Does the use of the internet or social media affect this person's ability to enjoy other aspects of their lives previously that were enjoyable? Does it stop them from going to work or getting to work on time? Has it affected academic performance? And most importantly, when this child is prevented from utilizing or accessing social media, does it cause emotional or physical distress? Do they present with like possible withdrawal symptoms? Do they lie or deceive others about their access? You know, so again, it's a diagnosis of exclusion. You have to rule out a lot of other things being the cause of a person's presentation. And of course, no one goes around wearing like a badge that says, I use the internet all the time. I can't wait to use the internet. It's something that can be done quietly with headphones. It can be done at nights. It can be done in the bathroom. So again, when someone presents in a particular way, then you have to ask the pertinent questions. And it's often associated with embarrassment because remember, on the internet, people can be anonymous. You know, you don't have a face sometimes. The person is not next to you. You can be free in your interactions, and this can be quite rewarding. And this leads to the urge to use more and more.
So it sounds like a lot of us may be missing the actual signs and symptoms as parents, as teachers. Dr. Nix, you had a great question related to that.
Yeah, so there are so many social media platforms. Some are used by teens, some are used by even the parents, adults, some by even us as professionals. How do we navigate ourselves in the world of social media? Is there a study out there that determines the level of dopamine, the neurotransmitter that is present in the brain, to see if there's a difference between a person who has a social media addiction versus a person who is just using it for fun or just using it, you know, because they feel bored, or the person who is not yet addicted? Thank you.
That's a very good question. Part of what we have research on already, that we have studies on, the dopamine circuitry of the brain. And the response to those that have been considered social media addicts shows the same response when they're on the social media platform. The response is similar to those that have on gambling addiction or someone on cocaine that's using cocaine, and this same part of the brain. But we don't have enough data because they started keeping data in 2013, 2015. Some of the studies that were done were outdated. It was from like maybe 2018. So now with the pandemic, we are finally acknowledging it. So they're going to start doing studies. Part of like Emory University is recruiting other people, including children and adults. But because of the overlapping comorbidities, to figure out how, when they become maladaptive, that's where we are now. So that's what we need to study. But there's no research yet for us to refer to, except for all the data that's been collected for the past 8 to 9 years.
You know, addiction is addiction because usually it involves almost overstimulation of a reward circuit, which results in the production of dopamine. And, you know, basically when you look at someone's brain who has internet addiction, the spots that light up or illuminate on scans are the same spots that light up, as Dr. J said, for cocaine, winning huge amounts of money, gambling, even eating like ice cream or chocolate. So what it really tells you is, with regular addiction, gambling, that is something that is really hard to treat. And it's self-reinforcing the very action itself. They've also been using EEGs to look at how the brain is different or how it reacts in someone who has internet addiction. And they're showing that the architecture, the wiring of the brain itself changes a little bit because of this increased reinforcement of addictive behavior. And they're saying some of the anomalies that are seen are increased activity in specific areas of the brain, theta and gamma, and also decreased alpha and beta and delta activities. And, it can change depending on the severity of the addiction. So point being, the best way to evaluate a person is to, one, get them into care and counseling, and two, for more widespread studies to take place to kind of pinpoint specifically abnormalities or changes, and therefore kind of give us more ideas as to how we can specifically target internet addiction.
Okay, just to follow up what she was saying.
I'm sorry.
I was just going to complete what she said. The problem is it is not taken seriously in the real life. I've been doing, I'm a medical director for rehab facility in Winder, where that is one of my area specialty. It's addictive diseases. And I can tell you, I don't have one patient with social media addiction that's diagnosed that is being treated. So we have to look at the data because it's something that is so provision. You see it all over in our community. Who doesn't go on their Facebook page? Who doesn't go on their Instagram? When does it cross the line that you could say this is an addiction and they merit treatment? We don't have that kind of data. We are going by what we know, and we have to look at the addiction criteria that has been established. Well, we don't have any data, and people are not being treated for it real life. I don't remember having, even when I see the children and adolescents at my other practice, I have never seen anyone come in for social media addiction. I had one patient that came in for addiction to porn sites specifically. But it's because he interfered with his life and his livelihood. So what we're talking about is not even recognized in the community. So we are fighting a losing battle because we have to let people know this is a problem. And that's what we're doing, what we're doing today.
Yes.
To bring awareness to it.
And I'm happy that that's why we are all here. I mean, I think that was one of the big factors of being experiencing this pandemic. We have all been put in front of the computer 10 times over for work, social, for just to have a birthday party, to say hi to your grandparents. And maybe that even those persons who would have never really been involved in social media may have this addiction. And we are talking about it more because of the COVID-19 pandemic. So, I mean, at this point, and even though it's not fully researched, but both of you doctors, what do you think would be the main criteria for people, laypersons, to say this child or this adult is just bored and just always on the phone versus, oh, I need to take them to see a specialist because I think they are having an addiction? What are those? I know you mentioned it before, but I think those are the big things.
The criteria that they use for most normal people, most adult, that is usually universally available, If we look at the data, 71% of American populations having some kind of sleep problem with phones and tablets. We know that. So do we consider that addiction? No. So we have a criteria now that's established that typically if someone spends over 5 hours in a day, every single day on social media, it could be Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, all of the avenue. 5 hours a day is excessive. Some of the teenage and young adults, we see them going up to 9 hours a day, as opposed to the normal everyday person that is just trying to connect, spend about an hour. Mm-hmm. So looking at that, and then we have to look at the addiction criteria, which we look at as this person. Let's say we identify patient A. Patient A spend every day 6 hours a day on Facebook or Instagram or Snapchat. And when we try to say cut back, they are not able to cut back. When you talk about this is not normal and they get angry about it, they get upset. I've seen kids in my practice that cried and told me that their life cannot go on. They will die without their social media. So we look at things like that. We also look at the tolerance, like every time they have to spend more time than they were before. So maybe before they was just spending 5 hours, but now they get another platform where they spend 6, 7 hours and they're not able to, and they need, in order to achieve that effect, that they feel better about themselves. Mm-hmm. They are spending more, they become tolerant to it. And then if you take their phone, their tablet, or you ask them to cut back, then they rebound, they relapse, for lack of better words. And once they go back on the tablet, they go back to their whole habits. So that's what we look at. And then that is when we'll consider this to be an addiction. And like I said earlier, 5 to 10% of the population in the world meet this criteria. So, but it's because of the comorbidity or the psychiatric sequelae of it, depression, anxiety for younger people. They are not performing like they should in school. So they miss social events, they miss family gathering. How many kids, parents sit together at dinner table without having some kind of electronic devices next to them? The quality time they need to spend interacting with each other, they don't do that. So that's when they become a maladaptive behavior, and that's when we consider it an addiction.
I see. Definitely.
So that definitely would lead me to the next question then, because like you mentioned at the dinner table, you know, there are instances where families are not communicating, they're on their phones. You know, you have parents and children, they come into the office, for example, where they're not communicating, they sit there in the room, and when you walk in, they're present in the same space, but they're not communicating. And you walk in and you see both of them are on their phones. Now, for example, now, how do you address that? What measures or tools or tips can you give us, or do you use to counsel parents and children about the importance of interacting with each other, or just paying attention to your surrounding environment in general, and paying attention to the doctor visit and focusing on the plan, on the discussion during the doctor's visit?
So for me, I work in 2 different offices. One is school-based. It's a day treatment program for children who need long-term supports for their psychiatric struggles. And it also provides, you know, an academic environment. And the other setting is a clinic that primarily treats people with autism. So it's clearly labeled, stating, you know, when you come here, remember you are here for you. In order for me to help you, I want you to be fully participants. Please put your phones or tablets away until the end of this meeting. So I have that little sign outside my door at work. I find for the most part, people will try to follow that recommendation. However, if especially if it's a teenager that comes in and they're angry at the parents. Sometimes they will pull out the phone or tablet, and I don't shy away from addressing it. And I will even structure it, especially for someone whose behaviors are linked to them accessing their phone or tablet to keep them calm. I will say, hey, if you pay attention, because generally your appointments, especially for established patients, are around, half an hour at minimum, and the newer patients are like 1.5 to 2 hours. I'll say, if you can pay attention and focus, this is for the children primarily, then at the end of half an hour, you can look at your phone for 10 minutes. And at the end of an hour, if it's a 2-hour long appointment, I'll say you can get 15 minutes to check your phone, but you have to put it back. For the children with autism, sometimes the tablet is the way they used to communicate. So in that instance, I will have them speak if they can, or participate, draw, and then I will tell them, you can take out the tablet so we can communicate, or you can use it to calm. In general, though, I have had grown-ups and adults who come in and they are doing business. They are posting. No, this is the best part. Trying to live stream the appointment.
Yeah, I see that.
So I've, in that case, I remind them that technically they're violating the privacy that's supposed to come from being in a psychiatric appointment. And, I'm like, you yourself in this moment might think it is okay, but on reflection, you might reveal things that are detrimental to you yourself, if it's the patient, or even to your child. And, I often remind them that stuff that goes on the internet doesn't go away. Even if you have deleted it, it can be accessed sometimes by someone else who might not be so good-hearted with regards to sharing this specific information.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I'm seeing patients and the parents are already putting me on the ground with baby and I'm like, they didn't ask me. Okay. So, I mean, where is the line? I know that being on social media is not just fun. It is monetized, okay? It is a lifestyle for people, social media influencers. This is something, and this is their livelihood. And I understand that, but there are some new things happening, and I notice people are just taking pictures of anything and everyone, and you and me and I do not want my MD name on your Instagram. Maybe you can take my face, but ask me at least. But so I'm sure all of you have experienced this, right? And so, but I would like to know from your opinion, both of you, how do you address that? One, and two, how do we help the adults if they think they have social media addiction? I mean, because I think most people are thinking, they're thinking the kids on the games all day long, the kids that play, those are the people who get social media addiction, not me, not an adult, not a person who has a job and good pay and all that. And I'm sure you all can speak to that.
Yeah, but I'm going to tell you something that happened to me yesterday.
Yes?
Yesterday, I ordered a NEB treatment, and it was a young mom, and I saw her on her phone, and I said, let me see what you just put on your Facebook. Then she's like, she showed it. I said, are you on social media? And she said, yeah, I just put it on she put it on her Facebook story, the child getting a treatment. And I was trying to explain the same thing to her, that, I would not have done that. Like, it was right at that instant. And I didn't think it was right for the poor babies to be exposed like that, so you're right. So help us, doctors.
Well, part of what I noticed is, like I was saying before, even before the pandemic, if you look at it in the world, we see like 71% of people are like actively on some kind of social media platform. This is like groundbreaking. It gives everybody the opportunity to be relevant. What do we want to do? We want to be relevant. We want to show people how good we are, how good we look, and all of this stuff. This is not helping to be able to talk to an adult, to have the dialogue that, they feel important. You see all these shows, the reality TV, you see the Keeping Up with the Kardashian, all those things that glamorizes, like everybody has a platform basically. So everybody's relevant. Whatever I want to say, I say. So for example, one of my colleagues that I went to medical school with, that I think highly of, I remember that I was talking to another one of my colleagues, and they said, she has so many Facebook posts that I can't keep up with all the activity. I can look in a given day and see what she did from the time she woke up in the morning, what happened to her at the clinic where she worked, what happened when she gave the lectures, what she ate with a picture of the food, everything. And I was like, she has kids. She has a husband, she has a family. She's a professor. She has a full life, but all her daily activities. So I'm like, I get overwhelmed looking at the Facebook of some of my dearest friends that I went to medical school with, that are well-established doctors, that are known, and their life, I feel like I'm not missing anything about their lives. All I have to do is look on Facebook. I know where they check in, what they did, what they ate, who were they with, their sorority sisters, their husband's family, their home decoration for Christmas, everything. And I'm like, if I don't have anything better to do, I will be online looking at their lives and say, wow, she has a lot to do.
But people don't post negative. They don't post negative.
Exactly.
Things. Right.
So for me, as a mother,
depression, people
yes.
I was wondering that I had this yes. Yeah. I had this conversation with one of my other friends, Lisa and I, Dr. Sanders and I, friend from medical school. We had this discussion, and I'm like, what does this lady do? She's a professor. She's a medical doctor. She is like well accomplished. And I'm wondering, like, what did she have time to do? Other things like live, go out, do something. Everything is like documented. So when I started saying that, I decided I was going to do a detox from social media, because I see myself going on other people's Facebook page and looking about everything they were doing. And I'm like, okay, I'm just as guilty as they are. I'm not putting everything I did on social media.
Yeah.
I am looking at other people. I'm looking at their homes. I'm looking at what they did. I'm looking at what they're wearing. I'm putting likes. Then you start following likes, retweets, all of that.
Because it's currency.
Tell somebody that this is a big
It's encouraging.
It's currency. But I mean, we all have our Facebook pages and platforms and, that we use, but it's how we use it. We have to use it responsibly. And as long as it's not an addiction, or we use it for, positive, using it as in a positive light. For example, I love my food and my flowers. So I'm going to post my food and my flowers,
And they're beautiful.
Because to me, that's, thank you. And to me, that's also making someone else feel that energy, that positive vibe, the positive vibes, as we will say it,
But I have heard that every
it's just how we have to use it.
All the likes are great, but I've heard that every time if you are into looking at the number and amount of likes you got within a certain time, it's similar to what Dr. Sophia was saying, the dopamine, it stimulates that dopamine area in your brain. There's so many good things that stimulate that dopamine area in the brain, like mindfulness, meditation, yoga, exercising, and all those things. So I'm going to assume that we can somehow help the brain get away from the addiction, as what you were saying, do a detox. meaning cut back hours. Any other things you think we can do besides we cut back hours, switch our habits like exercising?
Definitely, like what we're doing now is a start. Being able to recognize the problem that when we cross the line. So even for me, I have to come off of social media and Instagram, but I thought it was giving me a platform to talk, to share my life with my families and friends. But when it becomes maladaptive, when you care more about the comments and looking at the likes and it bothers you. And for a lot of kids, they end up with depression, social anxiety disorder, and then it become where they are actually receiving medication and therapy. All we have to do, if we could do the detox and cut back, if you're doing 5 hours a day, try to go to 4 hours a day for like a couple of weeks, then 3 hours a day. Because you can't just, I have had kids that came to my office and they were like, oh, I'm gonna die if I don't go on my social media. I'm gonna die. Okay. I mean, it's that, and they were really upset. Mm-hmm. And I've seen parents that have told their children that they can't, that they have to give them their tablets or whatever, and those games so that the kids can not be distracted, and it helps the parents to do whatever they wanted to do. Mm-hmm. And they don't have to deal with little Timmy, ADHD, not doing his work. Mm-hmm. And so even like with Dr. Sophia was saying, that people will come into the office. Yes, I am glad that your patients are compliant. Mine are not always. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Because, I mean, the parents are not sometimes helping. And the kid is still on, like, they're talking to me and they're on the tablet. And I've seen some parents that have chastised their children and they'll take the tablet back. But like you were saying, when you see mom and dad, there are like 3 people coming, the kid, the mom, the dad, and everyone is on their own devices. Mm-hmm. And then they'll come to my office trying to find a place to plug their charger.
Yes.
Yes, and like, listen to YouTube videos.
This is your appointment time. They're like, give me 1 second, Dr. J. I need to charge my phone.
Every day.
And I'm like, we are supposed to be talking about this. But for a lot of people, it gives people an outlet. Yeah. So how do we tell them to give up on something? Because they don't have to go outside. Mm-hmm. It doesn't affect them like drinking and driving or doing drugs is not illegal. Mm-hmm. So they're doing this in the privacy of their own home. But like I said, if you become maladaptive behavior where you cannot cut back, you get angry, it causes conflict, you cannot cut back, you get angry when people tell you that, you feel guilty when you don't go on it. I mean, and you need it every single day to survive. That's when it becomes a problem. And I think if we can have this kind of forum where we can all be honest about it and say, you know what, I know what you mean. I have an Instagram account. I have a Facebook account. I mean, gosh, I like to show my family what my kids are doing because I don't always have time to call everybody. And for me, coming from a large family, and my kids, their father's side of the family, they're large families. And a lot of our families are not in the United States. I have some family members in the UK, in Africa, all over the world, and they're able to connect. Mm-hmm. I could see what they're doing, and they could see what I'm doing. So they could see the picture of my children and, you know, kind of catch up with me, make sure I'm doing okay. But like Dr. Sanders was saying, if you start looking at the likes and it overwhelms you and you can't function and it makes you feel good and you feel euphoric from it, there's a problem.
The important thing is just to strike that balance, you know, just to make sure you're not, you said it's not maladaptive. And social, it's not all bad because like you said, you were able to connect with your family and your friends, and we're able to even connect with old friends, you know, friends from high school. So that's how I personally was able to connect with friends who were in the 7th grade and the 8th grade with me, first form, second form, you know, and eventually it led it has led to reunions and whatever else, so it's not all bad, but it's like, it's important for us to know when to stop, where to draw the line.
And also, I remember you asked me, Dr. Nix, you asked me earlier today, before I think we came on, we had the discussion about the sleep deprivation. When I was looking at the statistic, it was alarming to me that that about 97% of us sleep with some kind of phone or tablet. But then also we use it for our alarm system, reminders.
Yes.
It's also a phone. It's also, we use it for everything, basically. So when you sleep, you're going to look to see what happened over while you're sleeping. But it become a problem. They said that 51% of adults check their Facebook status every day. And then 68% of us in the United States, over 240 million, checks it several times a day, which is interesting. And then for the sleep deprivation for adults, is 35% of us will get up in the middle of the night and look at our social media account. For a teen, it's 47%. So we're looking, it's 47 million, it's 55% of children. But if you get up more than 10 times to look at your social media, you need detox. I was alarmed that 10% of teens do that. Like you can imagine, like 10 times every
10
night.
times? That's a lot to get up at night.
Exactly. 10 times.
For those who actually,
for those who
actually go to sleep, because you also have to factor into that number, the children who actually are staying up past 1 a.m., 2 a.m. on social media or on the internet and actually not initiating sleep. I can't tell you, I would say right now, 50% of the students in the day treatment program that I'm at, they come in and they have not had a good night's sleep. And if you ask them, aside from those who struggle with sleep as a part of their comorbidity because of anxiety or other mood issues, I would say like 50% of them, they are kept awake. One, because they have to watch their live stream, or they have to do online gaming, or they are on Instagram, or they're watching porn.
Yes.
So 50% of people will come in and express that this is an issue, and they actually don't even make it to bed until, the wee hours of the morning, sometimes not at all. So you're already starting your day in a sleep deprived state. And of course, when you're sleep deprived, your other symptoms can increase. You are not able to focus. Task completion is decreased. You are not able to problem solve, especially in your interpersonal relationships. Say, for example, in a typical teenage girl or boy, you have peer conflict. So instead of being able to rationalize and kind of not escalate because their emotional reserves are depleted because of poor sleep, they're more irritable. So then you have more arguments in general. Problem solving when it comes to like basic learning, they're not able to complete their tasks. Sometimes they'll flat out sleep in class, or when they come into my office, they'll tell me I slept. I wasn't able to keep up during the day. And because of that feeling of being tired, sometimes people feel decreased energy and they attribute that to feeling more down, which then leads them to present as more depressed. Sometimes OCD symptoms increase, sometimes anxiety symptoms increase. And guess what makes them feel better?
And I think before we can wrap this, I think something that we want, that's true.
But I wanted to say something quickly, but we can probably have part 2, but social media market is a profession for some people.
Yes.
Social media marketing. So they have to be up and up and up and do these things. So they have to be, in the know, in the game,
true.
and have to make
and
sure they do that.
Money.
They post.
True.
So that's another thing that you have to think about.
And then coronasomnia. Coronasomnia has been quoted to be the main problem that's stimulating the weight gain and all of these things. Social media addiction. But Dr. J had another point before we close out soon.
One thing that I've learned in my own personal life, I'm a proud mother of 5 children. We have a time out, like at what time the tablets, all the electronics, and that I've actually incorporated this into my practice with my patients and say, okay, you shouldn't have a TV in the room. They shouldn't have a tablet or anything like that, so that it doesn't interfere with their sleep cycle. Setting a time for everyone to have all the electronics off. Setting the time for family time, like during meals with that electronics on. Things like that is a beginning. And I think all of us don't text and drive. Even AT&T, it can wait a campaign to encourage people not to text and drive. And that's actually helped, because he has decreased the number of people texting and driving by 50%. So I think giving the children and the adults limits, give them a time out, 9 o'clock, 8 o'clock, 7 o'clock, no more electronics for the day.
First and foremost, we have to work on relationships, because a lot of people who end up being internet addicted start out with having certain vulnerabilities, such as anxiety, ADHD, depression, poor interpersonal relationships, isolations. They report also studies that people who don't have a mother figure that they're close to are more at risk. So we need to look at risk mitigation. So look for treatment for your anxiety, your ADHD, structured activities, sports, getting people up and out, and offering supports in all environments, in schools and also at home, working on connecting, because if you connect well, then it will decrease the risk that you are seeking more connections online.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you both for joining us. We really appreciate your input, your expertise, and I hope that families can learn and listen to what you just said. Listen and learn from what you just said.
Yes, and thank you again.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us. And thanks so much to Dr. Jayasini and Dr. Sophia Francis Stewart for dropping nuggets and teaching us and giving us information about social media addiction. So we're hoping that you will use this information and you will benefit from this information.
Yes, I hope so too. And I think we may have to do a part 2. We have more to discuss, and we really enlightened today by our 2 psychiatric specialists, and amazed that they took the time to spend with us. I really hope that you and our audience please like, share, and subscribe. We are here.
Like, share, and subscribe.
Like, share, and subscribe. We're here for you. Send us, in the comments, some ideas on shows that you would like for us to do in the health genre. Carib Nation has many other genres, but here in the health panel, please tell us what you would like to talk about.
Thank you. See you next time.
Bye, everyone.